Welcome to lecture number 34 for ECE 211 Circuits 1. In this lecture, we look at the P operator. Now, where we're going to head in the next three lectures is how to find the transient response for RL and RC circuits. So where we want to get to in the next three lectures is, given RL and RC circuits, find the time response. So in Circuit Lab, I can do that. I can run this and see here's the step response of this RC circuit. It's got the steady state solution right here, plus this transient part. So far we've been ignoring that. When we do phasor analysis, you just do steady state. That's for step input. You will also get something similar for sinusoidal inputs. If I simulate this system, I get the starting transient and then a steady state sine wave. Phasors gives you the steady state solution. How do we come up with the total solution, including the transient? So that's where we're heading in the next three lectures. And to do that, we're going to look at a trick to solve differential equations, the P operator. Then we'll look at using the P operator for RL circuits and RC circuits. So starting out, differential equations describe circuits with inductors or capacitors, and where that comes from is the VI characteristic for inductors and capacitors. For inductors, the voltage is L di dt, capacitors I equals C dV dt. So likewise, solving differential equations is inherent with trying to find the response to RLC circuits. And when you solve for the voltage or the current in a circuit, you're going to get two parts of the solution. There's a transient and a steady state solution. For example, if I have a constant input or step input, there's a transient going from state A to state B, then the steady state solution. If this was a constant 5 volts for infinite time, the output would stay constant. So far, we've been looking at just how to find the steady state solution. That's phasor analysis. What we're going to look at now is how to get the transient solution. How do we go from state A to state B? And there's several ways to do that. In calculus, the approach you're going to use is guess the form of the answer, then solve for the constants to make the equations balance. Second way is to use Circuit Lab. Plug it into Circuit Lab, and Circuit Lab will tell you the transient response and the steady state response. Same as MATLAB. Solve using numerical integration. Third approach is the P operator. That's what we cover in Circuits 1, this course. Fourth approach is Laplace transforms. That'll be covered later on in Circuits 2 and Signals to Systems. Now let's start out with the approach that you use in calculus. In calculus, the trick is, given a differential equation and an initial condition, guess the form of the answer. So suppose I have this problem. First order differential equation, here's my forcing function x of t, and my initial condition. What is y of t? Well, y of t is going to contain two parts, a forced response and a natural response. The forced response assumes zero initial conditions and a forcing function. The natural response assumes no forcing function and an initial condition. Let's start with the forced response. Here I've got a differential equation with a forcing function, so plug in x of t. Now to find y of t, the trick you use in calculus is guess what the answer is. So there's a little bit of art here. I'm going to guess the answer is the same form as the input times a constant that I don't know. If you guess right, it'll balance. If you guess wrong, it means your guess was wrong. Try again. Just from experience, I know that for linear differential equations, the output will be the same form as the input, just scaled by a constant. So if I do that, take the derivative of y, plug it in here, take y, plug it in for y, x is the same. Now the e to the minus 2t's all cancel, and I wind up with a equals 20. So that's the forced response. It's in this form where a equals 20. Now find the natural response. The natural response is I solve the differential equation with zero input. Again, I have to guess the form of the answer. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Turns out if you guess y is b e to the minus 3t, it'll work. Some lucky guessing is involved here. But if I plug this in, I'm going to get the derivative is minus 3b e to the minus 3t. That's the derivative of y plus 3b e to the minus 3t. These cancel and I get 0. So it turns out this will satisfy that differential equation. And again, it's kind of experience guessing. It's one of the problems with calculus. If you guess the right answer, you can find it. The total response then will be the natural response plus the forced response. So here's the forced response, here's the natural response. To find b, I need an initial condition. At t equals 0, y is equal to 3. Solving for b, b is minus 17. So this is y of t. And here's what that looks like. Here's my input x, there's y of t, y starts at 3, and then follows this way. Now that's one way to solve this differential equation. And kind of note, that is really painful. We need a better tool. Well, in this class, we're going to introduce the p operator. That's a better tool. Next class, in Circuits 2, we'll get the Laplace operator. Laplace and p are pretty similar. The p operator is a trick that turns differential equations into algebraic equations in p. And the assumption is that algebra is easier than calculus. The basic assumption behind the p operator is that all functions are in the form of e to the pt. What that does for me is that when I take the derivative, I now get p, e to the pt, or p times x. So p is an operator that means derivative. What the p operator does is it turns differential equations into algebraic equations in p. So suppose I have this first order differential equation. Substitute. P means the derivative, so the derivative of y is p times y, plus 3 times y is 4 times x. And for notation, I'm using capitals for the p domain, lowercase for the time domain. You can kind of be sloppy about that, but that's kind of what I'm doing with capital and lowercase. I'm doing some algebra. I can solve for y in terms of x. So y is 4 over p plus 3 times x. This is the gain from x to y. As p changes, the gain changes. Now what that does for me is it makes the forced response a whole lot easier to find. For example, suppose I have this differential equation and have 3 different forcing functions. X is 5 e to the minus 2t, and x is 5 sine of 2t. Find the forced response. Well, the approach is using the p operator. Here's the transfer function from x to y. If the input is a constant 5 with an initial condition, then what I'm going to do is to find the forced response is assume all functions are in the form of e to the pt. So for the number 5, 5 is 5 e to the 0t. So for this guy, this means that p equals 0, and the amplitude is 5. The forced response then is just phasor analysis. I have 4 over p plus 3. This is the gain everywhere. All I care about is what's the gain at p equals 0, times the input at p equals 0, which is just 5. So the answer is 4/3 times 5, or 20/3. That's the forced response. You kind of notice this is actually a whole lot easier than what we did before. Because to have the transfer function, just find the frequency of the input, p equals 0, times the input. Now add in the natural response. The natural response assumes x of t equals 0. So I have this form. Cross multiply, I get p plus 3y equals 0. This has two solutions. Y equals 0, that's the trivial solution, or p is minus 3. Going with the latter, it says that y of t is in this form. Again, I'm assuming everything's in the form of e to the pt, so p is minus 3. There's the natural response. The total response then is the natural response plus the forced response plus the natural response. Plugging in the initial condition at t equals 0, the answer is 3. Solving, I get b is minus 11/3. So here's the response. That's for constant input. Let's extend that. Suppose my forcing function is 5 e to the minus 2t, and my initial condition is 3. Solve for y of t using the p operator. Well, I've got the forced response. In this case, everything's in the form of e to the pt. So p is minus 2, and the amplitude is 5. So the forced response is, here's the gain everywhere. All I care about is what's the gain when p is minus 2 times the input at that point gives me 20. So here's the forced response, 20 e to the minus 2t. And again, notice this is way easier than what you did back in calculus. This is the gain everywhere. Just analyze at a point times the input at that point gives the amplitude. And this is 20 e to the pt, or e to the minus 2t. That's the forced response. The total response is forced plus natural response. So here's the forced response. Natural response stays the same. This is if x of t equals 0, how does it want to behave? It wants to behave as b e to the minus 3t. Add in the initial condition, solve for b, and here's the total response. And what that looks like is this. I start at a 3, I rise up, then come back down. Now notice that's the same answer that we got before, only a whole lot easier. Third case, suppose the input is a sine wave. Well, in this case, kind of the same idea. If this is my forcing function, I'm going to treat this using phasors. In phasor form, this is the real part of minus j5 e to the minus j2t. So the initial value is 0 minus j5, real part's cosine, minus j is sine. The frequency is j2. Again, j2 is different than 2. 2 is an exponential. j2 is a sine wave. So there's p and x for the forced response. This is the gain everywhere. All I care about is what's the gain at p equals j2 times the input. This is a sine wave, amplitude 5, 0 minus j5. Multiply this all out, I get a complex number. Real part's cosine, minus j is sine. So there's the forced response, there's the input, there's the output. The transient response is how do I go from here to there. The transient response from before is in the form of b e to the minus 3t. The total response then is forced response plus natural response. To find b, plug in the initial condition. If the initial condition was 0, at 0 was 3, solve for b, and I get b is minus 1.16. So here's the total response, and here's what it looks like. I start from 3, and I converge the steady state solution as minus 1.16 e to the minus 3t. So that's the p operator for a first order differential equation. Also works for second order differential equations. So suppose I have this. I've got a second order differential equation. For second order differential equations, I need two initial conditions. Suppose that t equals 0, y equals 0, and y prime equals 0. So I'm starting out right here at 0, and then I do something to get over here. What is the forced response? What is the natural response? Also assume that x of t is a sine wave. Well, again, start with the p operator. This is the differential equation. You let p mean derivative. So here's the second derivative, first derivative, and just y is 10x. Solve for y in terms of x. There's the transfer function. Now find the forced response. This is true everywhere. All I care about is what's the gain at this frequency. So here, p equals j2. The amplitude is 3 minus j4. And using phasors, real part's cosine, minus j is sine. Analyze. Here's the gain everywhere. All I care about is what's the gain at p equals j2 times the input, gives you complex number. Real part's cosine, minus j is sine. So the pink there, that is the forced response. The transient response is how do I go from point A to the steady-state solution, to the forced response. To find that, I find the natural response. Set the input to 0, cross-multiply. This tells me that, or factor, this tells me that either p is -1, -5, or y equals 0. Y equals 0 is the trivial solution, so take the other two. If p is -1 or -5, I know that y of t is in this form. Again, at the p operator, I assume everything's in the form of e to the pt. I've got two terms. Second order differential equation, I have two terms in y. To solve for a and b, I need two initial conditions. That's your position and velocity. The total response then is the forced response plus the natural response. So here's the forced response. Here's the natural response. Add the two together. That's what y of t looks like. To find a and b, plug in the initial conditions. So at t equals 0, y of 0 is this. If y prime of 0 equals 0, take the derivative. I get that. Two equations, two unknowns, solve for a and b. So this is the form of y of t. And what it looks like is, here's the input. The pink line is the forced response. The red line is the actual response. So I start from 0. The initial velocity is 0. Initial voltage is 0. I go up and converge to the steady-state solution. I'm converging as this. That difference is 2.5 e to the minus t plus 0.6 e to the minus 5t. So that, in a nutshell, is the p operator. A little confusing, but way, way, way better than what you did back in calculus. Kind of in summary, the p operator assumes all functions are in the form of e to the pt. The p operator makes solving differential equations a whole lot easier because it replaces each derivative with a p, and that turns your differential equation into an algebraic equation in p. Now, the forced response is actually easy to find using p operator. It is just a phasor problem. I evaluate the gain of the system at the frequency of the input times the input at that frequency. The natural response is a little bit harder to find. You have to find the roots to the denominator polynomial and then match coefficients based upon the initial condition. Put the two together, the forced response and the natural response, I get the total response. That tells you how to go from your initial condition to the steady-state solution, giving the total response. So that is lecture number 34 for ECE 211 Circuits 1. You're going to be doing this again for the next 2 semesters. The p operator is what we're introducing at the end of Circuits 1. You'll be using that and the Laplace transform, an extension of the p operator in Circuits 2, and use that extensively when you get to signals and systems. So you'll be seeing this quite a bit. Lecture number 34 for Circuits 1.